In every sport, there are players so gifted that the game seems unfair when they step on the court, players whose talent feels divine or cursed. In Kuroko's basketball, Daiki Aomine is the embodiment of this paradox, a natural prodigy, unstoppable in one-on-one situations, yet plagued by a crushing loneliness that comes from being too good. This is the story of Aomine, the untouchable ace of the generation of miracles, his psychological struggle, and how his journey reflects both the brilliance and burden of greatness. The making of a prodigy. Daiki Aomine's introduction is explosive. From the very first scenes, he's portrayed not only as powerful but as different. He moves like no one else, scores like no one else, and radiates an effortless confidence that borders on arrogance. Yet beneath that bravado lies something deeper, the creeping shadow of isolation. Aomine starts as a boy who loved basketball. He was vibrant, smiling, playful, someone who found pure joy in the game. His early days at Teiko Middle School under Coach Sanada were filled with passion, but as his talent grew, he noticed something unsettling: no one could keep up. The only one who can beat me is me. This isn't just a boast, it's a cry of despair. At first, Aomine wanted to challenge himself by playing against the best, but one by one, his opponents fell. His teammates, even within the generation of miracles, admired him but couldn't match his natural athleticism and uncanny instincts. When victory became guaranteed, it stopped being meaningful, the curse of being too good. In psychology, there's a term called the burden of exceptionalism. When someone is far beyond their peers in ability, they lose the social feedback loop that keeps competition rewarding. For Aomine, this meant no rival could push him to his limits, no game felt worth playing, no coach could reach him. This is where arrogance became a defense mechanism. Aomine's infamous line isn't pure ego, it's his way of masking pain. When you're too far ahead, improvement feels impossible. And when there's no struggle, there's no growth, only boredom. If I try, I win. If I don't try, I still win. So why bother trying at all? This attitude corroded his love for basketball. He began skipping practice, clashing with coaches, and isolating himself from even his closest teammates. The duality of Aomine's personality. Aomine's core personality has two sides: the carefree, playful street baller who just wants to enjoy the game, the hardened, cynical ace who hides his loneliness behind arrogance. At Teiko, Aomine was warm and approachable. He encouraged others, smiled often, and treated basketball as a shared joy. But as the gap widened, his demeanor hardened. His face lost its lightheartedness. Even Kuroko, his closest friend on the team, struggled to reach him. This duality reflects a defense mechanism in psychology. When a person feels disconnected from their peers, they may choose detachment over disappointment. Rather than risk vulnerability, I wish I had rivals. They project strength. No one is worthy of me. Why Aomine fell out of love with basketball? Lack of competition. Winning stopped feeling like an achievement. His opponents feared him rather than challenging him. The culture at Teiko. Under Akashi's evolving leadership, the generation of miracles shifted from teamwork to domination. Fun and creativity were replaced by cold efficiency. Identity loss. Aomine defined himself as a basketball lover, not just a basketball god. When joy vanished, he no longer knew who he was on the court. The Emperor's shadow and individual isolation. Akashi's emergence as the iron-fisted captain only worsened Aomine's isolation. While Akashi commanded respect through absolute control, Aomine withdrew into personal freedom. Ironically, both were symptoms of the same disease: unparalleled talent with no checks or balances. Where Akashi's mind fractured into two identities, Aomine numbed his feelings. He didn't shatter, he just stopped caring. His skipping of practices at 2 Academy wasn't rebellion for its own sake. It was his way of silently protesting the emptiness of the game. Tetsuya Kuroko is key to understanding Aomine's psychology. Early on, Aomine respected Kuroko deeply because Kuroko loved basketball as purely as he did. Later, when Aomine grew cynical, Kuroko's optimism angered him because it reminded him of his own lost passion. Their showdown in the Winter Cup became a therapy session in disguise. For the first time in years, Aomine had to try. That struggle reminded him of why he loved basketball. This moment is crucial. When Kuroko Seirin pushes Aomine to his limits, his face lights up, not because he's winning, but because he's finally fighting. The only one who can beat me is me. For a long time, that phrase wasn't just arrogance, it was prophecy. Aomine's natural instincts, his unpredictable streetball style, and his unmatched athleticism made him virtually unguardable. But there's another side to that prophecy. If no one else can challenge you, the only battles left are inside your own mind. The curse of genius becomes visible. By the time Aomine enters 2 Academy, his disconnection from the game is at its peak. He routinely skips practice, refuses to listen to coaches, and dominates games with minimal effort. While his teammates admire him, they fear him too because his talent makes their own work seem irrelevant. Signs of the curse. Apathy toward teammates. He rarely passes, not because he's selfish by nature, but because he doesn't believe they can help. Frustration disguised as laziness. Skipping practice isn't about rebellion, it's about hopelessness. Reliance on raw instinct. He stops refining his game because he thinks no one can catch up anyway. This is not the same as arrogance in the usual sense. Many arrogant players still care deeply about winning and respect tough opponents. Aomine's curse is more corrosive. He genuinely stops expecting anyone to test him, so he stops testing himself. The psychological isolation of an ace. In sports psychology, great talents who outpace their peers often face a unique problem loss of peer group validation. Humans thrive on social comparison. We define ourselves by measuring against others. But when no one is close to your level, success feels empty, effort feels unnecessary, recognition feels hollow because it comes without struggle. Aomine internalizes this by withdrawing emotionally. Even his friendship with Momoi, his childhood friend and Tu's manager, doesn't pierce his growing cynicism. She sees his pain, but Aomine refuses to admit it. He hides it under a mask of confidence, which only cracks in rare moments of honesty. The turning point facing Seiren, the Winter Cup match against Seiren, is where everything changes. Kuroko and Kagami refuse to be intimidated by Aomine's dominance. For the first time in years, he is forced to go all out. Key phases of this transformation during the match. First quarter, Aomine toys with Seiren, showing flashes of his brilliance without full effort. Second quarter, Kagami matches Aomine's pace in raw athleticism, shocking him. Third quarter, Aomine's expression changes. He's smiling again. He hasn't smiled on the court in years. The battle reignites his hunger. Final moments. Even when Tu loses, Aomine feels alive. The curse breaks, not because he wins, but because he finally has to fight. For the first time in years, Aomine remembered why he loved basketball. Not because it was easy, but because it was hard. Not because he was invincible, but because he could still bleed. The deeper meaning of his rivalry with Kagami. Aomine sees Kagami as the answer to his despair. Kagami is pure effort, the opposite of Aomine's natural genius. While Aomine skips practice, Kagami grinds. While Aomine loses faith in competition, Kagami lives for it. Their clash isn't just athletic, it's philosophical. Aomine represents raw, effortless talent that corrodes without challenge. Kagami represents relentless work ethic that grows stronger under pressure. By the end of their match, Aomine respects Kagami not only as a rival, but as someone who saved him from himself. Aomine's journey reflects real-life lessons about gifted individuals. The talent paradox, early success, faster boredom. If you dominate too soon, you stop developing. No rivals, no growth. Human beings need competition to feel alive. Gifted individuals often isolate themselves. They believe no one understands them, which becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Ego as a defense mechanism. When prodigies feel unchallenged, they often pretend not to care. I don't need this to avoid admitting they're lonely. Act superior to shield against the fear of stagnation. Push people away so they won't have to face vulnerability. Aomine is textbook. His arrogance isn't cruelty, it's armor. The redemption through rivalry. Psychologically, Aomine needed someone to drag him back into the light. Kagami and Kuroko did exactly that by proving he wasn't untouchable. The joy of struggle is what cured his apathy. Aomine Daiki didn't need to be saved from losing, he needed to be saved from winning too easily. In Kagami and Seiren, he found the proof he was looking for. Basketball was still worth fighting for. Aomine Daiki isn't just a character in Kuroko's basketball. He's a study in what happens when raw talent outpaces structure, guidance, and challenge. His journey is one of the most psychologically rich arcs in all of sports anime. The anatomy of a prodigy. Psychologists who study gifted children describe 3 recurring traits. Early mastery. They learn faster than peers and outperform them effortlessly. Low tolerance for stagnation. When challenges disappear, they lose interest. Social isolation. Exceptional skill separates them emotionally from peers. Aomine checks every box. By middle school, he was already dominating Japan's youth basketball scene. But without rivals to push him, his growth outpaced his environment and his motivation collapsed. Most sports anime rivals are simply strong obstacles for the protagonist to overcome. Aomine is different because he isn't evil. His arrogance hides genuine loneliness. His defeat doesn't break him, it saves him. He represents a rare archetype, the prodigy who needs rivals, not fans, to grow. His dynamic with Kagami is less hero versus villain and more light versus shadow, 2 forces pushing each other toward their peak. Core desire, to play basketball that excites him. Core fear, being trapped in boredom forever. Flaw, he gives up when unchallenged, retreating into arrogance as a defense. Growth, learns to value teamwork, rivalry, and effort over effortless domination. Daiki Aomine's journey isn't about learning to win, it's about learning to love basketball again. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like and subscribe.